I have a quote from Mr. Anslinger. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you said it right.
I did. I thought I did. He said, there are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz and swing, result from marijuana use. The marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relationship with Negroes, entertainers, and any others.
Oh.
That's what they were fucking saying.
Oh my God.
Oh.
That's a direct quote. My God.
Well, that explains my love for jazz.
We need to be playing jazz in the intro
explains my love
today.
for black men.
Yeah.
There you go.
Welcome to the podcast where we talk about cannabis.
Community violation. Code Green Plant.
Hi, welcome to Code Green Plant. I'm your host, Christy Chanel, alongside with my co-host, Phoebe James.
Hey, Christy.
And hey. And so we're going to talk with, Sam McClain. And this is a mutual friend of ours who is so very knowledgeable when it comes to cannabis. But beyond that, we're going to talk about the history of weed, cannabis, the plant. We're not going to go all the way back, to Bible days. We may one day. It's an interesting journey, and I'm excited to get into it because I think it might blow some people's minds. Sam, welcome. Hi. So what made you decide to say yes to us? We are a little crazy.
Aren't we all? It's just, I don't know. It's a really important subject to me personally. And I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I know everything about marijuana. I know my personal experiences with it, and close friends to me's personal experiences with it, family members' experiences with it. I've just kind of lived in a very open world of marijuana after I became of age. It's just never really been a thing that, my family really worried about too much. Obviously they didn't want me smoking a bunch of weed in high school at 15. Like, you need to get to the brain development stage where, you're all fully fleshed out before you should really start
100%.
imbibing heavily.
Yes.
I am a firm believer in that. That's something I tell my niece a lot because she's aware of everybody smoking in our family. And I'm like, look, man, yeah, we're all honest and upfront with you about it, but you can't just do it because you want to, just like with cigarettes or alcohol. You got to wait till you're of age. Talking about the legalization of it, that is one thing that I do hope that they put a good staunch age limit on it, just like with drinking. There should be, and I believe there is in the states that it is legal.
But they also have that law, since you were talking about drinking, where you can drink with your parents. At like 16. Because I came from Jersey and my dad's like, you want to drink? I'm like, I'm 16. He's like, you're with me. I'm like, what?
You can still do that. Yeah, so my mom is kind of my big reason for why I'm big on legalization. I've always kind of just been a recreational with mild medical use of marijuana. For me, it's always just been, like I said, my glass of wine, something I just really enjoy. So it's just kind of something that is, personally fun for me. But for my mom, she actually has a degenerative disc disease and spinal stenosis, cervical, lower lumbar nerve damage, like just her whole back from, neck to the bottom is just completely messed up. At least they've tried to give her a bunch of different narcotics, and some of them she'll take and go, I can't take this. She's very sensitive to that kind of thing. But my dad has always been a big user of marijuana and a big proponent for legalization and kind of for people to be able to do whatever they want. So if you want to smoke weed, you should be able to smoke weed. He would drive to Colorado after they got legalization. So he would go and do these, weekend trips driving up and down. It's kind of ridiculous that he's got to drive so far just to get something for her that where all of these legal medications have done nothing. This has helped her so much. But even to get some of the prescriptions that she's had to get, she'll have to take a drug test to get these medications just to see if they'll work. just to find out that they won't. And now she's gone, 2 months and is in incredible pain because she's not been able to take take an edible. And so she's finally just gotten to the point where she's like, I'm in my 60s. I don't care. I'm just going to take my edibles because that's what I know works for me. So I really hope that we get to a point to where it doesn't have to be just such a slog to get medication that helps, and that's one of the things. There will be a lot of testing. There will be a lot of trial and error, and I'm sure that there will find some things that are not perfect about it. The side effects of some perfectly legal drugs now are so awful. They call marijuana a gateway drug, and I'm sorry, that's such bullshit.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
Big Pharma is somebody that I'm not a big fan of, and there's just so much prejudice against a plant because a couple of political people have had a, in quotes, problem with it.
It's really nice to have an alternative that's a plant that grows in the ground, as long as you know where it's coming from and who's giving it to you. It's the right way to go. Okay, so before we talk about specific timelines, out of everything that you've studied, everything that you've already known, what do you think was the biggest holy shit when you dove into it?
I think for me, it was just kind of how it used to be cool and everybody was fine with it and encouraged it. And then all of a sudden, there was just this huge 180 heel turn. And, this may not be my place to speak on it, but it seems to be that a part of it was after the Mexican Revolution in 1910, there was a big flood of Mexican immigrants to the United States. And the United States, in that time period, not being and probably still to this day, not being a very open-minded place, there was a lot of fear culture around Mexican immigrants coming to the States, and a lot of marijuana was brought with them. And so there was anti-drug campaigns that were warning against the encroaching marijuana menace. And it was always kind of targeted back at Spanish-speaking individuals, when I was just like, oh my God, everything comes back to racism. Like, it's always just...
Yep.
Oh my God. And so that pissed me off. I was not aware of that. And that was even before Reefer Madness and everything. That was back in the 1910s to 20s. So it seems like it's kind of been the past century and some change that there's just been a lot of just kind of some negative connotations with the poor marijuana. It's just kind of getting a bad rap from the beginning. Insert cash money sound effect here, but it seems to come back to money.
What about you, Phoebe? What were you the most surprised about?
There were studies back in, I think, 1944, during a lot of when it started getting scary. They had studies coming out saying, no, guys, it's not bad. It doesn't do all this scary stuff. President Kennedy came out saying, no, guys, it's not all bad. It doesn't do all this scary stuff. But then people still want to listen to, but then I guess it's, if it bleeds, it leads, If it's negative publicity,
Well, they were ignoring the doctors. They were ignoring people that could prove that it's not like crack, and they just had their own agenda, so it didn't matter. But I could tell you that I'd heard about Reefer Madness, but I had never myself sat down and watched it. I just didn't give a shit. I don't want to hear it. It's stupid. I don't want to hear it. My dad talked me into it. He goes, no, you need to look at it. So I decided to do a little digging before I watched it. So the movie was made by financed by a group of churchgoers. They contributed to the making of this movie. And Anslinger, who I'm sure everyone knows of from history's past, who is our enemy, our arch enemy, also helped make this movie. So I wanted to play a little bit of it for you.
The weed marijuana is grown in every state in the Union. Recently, in the city of Brooklyn, New York, a field of marijuana was found behind a tenement court. The weed was here being cultivated, regularly stripped and dried and sold in schools and at government army posts in and around New York. The dried leaves and berries are ground up and made into cigarettes by a simple hand machine. The deadly narcotic is thus quickly and easily prepared for its market. The sale of marijuana is even more difficult to detect and halt than the traffic in drugs such as opium, morphine, and heroin. They are hidden in fake jewelry cases, in the heels of shoes, women's shoes especially, because the drugs can be secreted in false heels. Hollowed shaving brushes are another medium. Books with false centers are often used. Watch cases are convenient hiding places. The value of drugs thus seized is enormous. Recently, a huge supply of heroin was taken. It was concealed in an apparently harmless shipment of 35 barrels of olive oil. The deadly drug was burned in the incinerator of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. And more vicious, more deadly, even than these soul-destroying drugs, is the menace of marijuana.
What? Marijuana's more deadly than heroin, you guys. I had no idea.
Who could have guessed?
Right.
It feels like a Black Mirror episode.
It feels, and then I stopped it. I was like, I'm done. I cannot watch this any longer.
I've watched it for a meme, kind of for the same jesting from my dad. He's like, just go into it with a sense of humor, because if you do, it's the funniest fucking movie you will ever watch.
True.
He goes, just view it as a comedy. And it's been a minute since I've watched it, but I remember just being like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And, it was done with, the end result in making sure that everybody was terrified of using it. And obviously, I get it. Like, when it comes to your kids, you don't want them using it. It's not a kid's, something that a kid should be consuming.
No, same with cigarettes and alcohol. They're, like we were saying, there should be an age limit.
Yeah, so in that way, I'm not angry at the film because, but I feel like you should be telling them at least facts. Give them the facts and let them know this is not something you're allowed to do. This is not something, your brain is still growing. You do not want to be doing this now, but at least give them the facts, be honest.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that especially this to a almost clownish degree, but I always remember seeing marijuana in movies and pop culture and stuff as a teenager, and it's like everything goes all heat hazy and everything changes colors, man, and it's like it's so not that at all. And I remember the first time smoking, it's just like, oh, well, that's not what it is at all.
That brings up a good point. I have a quote from Mr. Anslinger. Oh, I'm sorry, Anslinger.
No, you said it right.
I did. I thought I did. He said, there are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz and swing, result from marijuana use. The marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relationship with Negroes, entertainers, and any others.
Oh.
That's what they were fucking saying.
Oh, my God.
Oh.
That's a direct quote. My God.
Well, that explains my love for jazz.
We need to be playing jazz in the intro
explains my love
today.
for black men.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so I heard a rumor. I didn't pull up any facts, but I guarantee if we Google it, I may be able to have assisting facts. But apparently, the start of it here was that there was a mayor, and he was friends with the president, Lyndon B. Johnson. Mm-hmm. Okay, this mayor caught his wife cheating on him with a Mexican man. Therefore, spinning this together and asking the president to assist in banning marijuana and showing that it's Mexican men sleeping with white women and it's causing them to do that.
That makes so much sense. That I would believe that 1,000 times over, that it was just some guy, some politician getting butthurt over getting cheated on.
Lyndon B. Johnson and Richard J. Daley. He was a Chicago mayor. And so he was influenced by seeing his wife cheat on him with a Mexican, and he influenced everything that was about to come.
That's crazy.
So, you guys can Google it. to.
And it couldn't have been because he was ill-equipped or he did something wrong to make her want to do that.
That's what I was going to say. Surely he was the best husband.
Marijuana somehow? I don't know how that...
Right? I want to jump into a couple things. So like I said, I was looking up the history of weed, and I know some parts of it, but I didn't know all of it. So I learned in 1492, Christopher Columbus brought rope made out of hemp on his voyage to the New World. So all the way back in 1492, hemp was being used. Little did he know that later it would be outlawed and just made legal in, 2018? Yeah, but I mean, they're using it for rope. The Navy uses it for rope. It doesn't. Why are you gonna outlaw rope?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is like it seems to, from what I've been researching, it's like it comes back around to where it's like everybody, nobody can have rope, nobody can have pot, nobody can have no part of it, and then there's a war or something that would benefit from something quick to grow and produced for materials. And then all of a sudden it's okay. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as that need is, curbed, back to hating it. There's just this constant bouncing back and forth.
Well, both the French and the British they actually made the colonists grow cannabis in the New World. Mm-hmm. So they knew the value back then. And we know the value now, and we're not listening to all of this stupid propaganda stuff. And in the 1600s, cannabis grew popular and became a major trade between South and Central Asia. So they made some money off of it as well. And then 1798, Napoleon outlawed the plant due to his soldiers smoking it in Egypt. Good for them. And bringing it home with them to France. So he said, I don't want it. You're done. Then in the 1800s, cannabis plantations were scattered across the U.S. and doctors were prescribing it, and you could be buying it in the general stores. Mm-hmm. So it was very regulated. Everybody was able to use it. Majority of it was as a medicine and not necessarily to get high. I wasn't there. This is just in the books. They could have been using it to get high. I mean, they probably were, if we're going to be honest.
It's kind of the same thing with the cocaine legalization from that time too, where it was like, oh, you have a toothache, here, put some of this powder on it, it'll go away. And
Great point.
little did we know in the 80s what would happen then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now here's something that I did find that was really weird. In 1906, the Pure Food and Drug Act was passed in California. California would revise this act in 1913 to include marijuana, being the first state to ban marijuana and the first state to legalize it.
That's crazy.
In 2013, yeah. Freaking crazy. California, what are you doing? You started the whole thing. In 1914, everybody was using the word cannabis, and the reason that they changed the word cannabis and started calling it marijuana, MARIHUANA, was to make it like it was directly from the Mexicans, and they were causing this craziness, insanity. So marijuana was started being used in about 1914.
Yep, it was the marijuana menace, is what the anti-drug campaigners called it, and it was specifically targeted at Spanish-speaking newcomers to the country.
Yeah, and if you notice, Christie spelled it with an H. That was when they changed it to a J, so it would be even more associated with Mexicans.
Yep.
In 1925, 26 states outlawed cannabis. Then in 1929, we get our friend Harry Anslinger, who starts to make the U.S. go a little bit crazy with this.
In the 1930s, it was, as unemployment got really, really bad, there was a public resentment and fear of Mexican immigrants, as was popular in that time, unfortunately. And so this kind of escalated the public and government concern about the problem of, in quotes, marijuana, when it was really just everywhere was just having an employment crisis. It wasn't anybody's fault. There was just an influx of new people to the country at the same time that the country is also going through some very unfortunate employment issues of its own. So they kind of, again, like you're saying earlier, just kind of incorrectly linked these two things together. And so there was a lot of research trying to link the use of marijuana with violence and crime and deviant behaviors and basically, I hate to say this, any, in quotes, racially inferior or underclass communities, I say highly quoted, not my beliefs, this is beliefs of the people in the 1930s, is that, that was kind of where, like you said earlier, that's where they saw it all coming from. Harry Anslinger was the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. And he stayed in that position until 1962.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. He was there that entire time, good 32 years.
Can I read another quote from our friend?
Mr. Anslinger?
Yeah.
Yeah, Anslinger.
Yes.
He says, reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men.
Jesus
I am
Christ.
not lying
Oh my
to
God.
you.
And these are people that used to run our country from what
They
year
were
to what
elected.
year? It's crazy. Someone who had those opinions is who dictated a drug policy that's still in effect in 2023
Good God.
for views like that.
Yeah, and then we've got another quote. Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. The history, that's a long time.
That's a long
history.
That's
Is he
ridiculous.
alive? He's dead, right?
I think he
no
is
way.
dead.
time. Yeah, like
Is
no
he
way.
dead?
He died
gone?
in 1975.
Did he make babies?
Probably so, Christy. That's probably
Yeah. I say, unfortunately,
checking.
yes. It was like he just kind of kept pushing for. You remember the big push where it was like video games are causing violence, and the reason that there's like all these shootings and stuff is because of violent video games? That's kind of the same approach he took to marijuana, is that all of this violence is because of, in quotes, big heavy quotes, racially inferior people partaking in marijuana.
I was just going to ask Sam, did you read anything about when did they make the schedule, the drug schedule, like Schedule 1, Schedule 2? Do you know when that happened? Oh, you do, Christy. Okay.
1969.
That's when they did. It would make sense why they would make marijuana Schedule 1 because they probably wanted to limit testing because they knew what we'd find because every time
Which is
testing was
nothing.
done historically, it was that it's not harmful. It's not addictive. It doesn't cause all these things.
Good God.
So in 1937, they passed the Marijuana Act of 1937. It was a high tax on marijuana. Then to counteract that, William Woodward spoke out against it. And he was a representative of the American Medical Association. And guess what? They ignored him. He said, a quote from that case, he said, loses sight of the fact that future investigation may show that there are substantial medical uses for cannabis. So he testified this, and they ignored him. They completely said, screw you, we don't care.
And it looks like, I'm sure there was stuff in between there too, but kind of the next point I was able to find kind of in that same regard was the LaGuardia report, basically coming out and saying that they find marijuana is fine. Like, it's really not that bad. And so, contrary to earlier research and popular belief, use of marijuana did not include violence, insanity, or sex crime, or lead to addiction or other drug use. So thank you, LaGuardia Report, 1944, for being ahead of your time.
The first person was arrested for selling marijuana, October 2nd.
Oh.
And his name was Samuel Caldwell. I just think we need to say his name. Because I know that this was all done for another reason. It had nothing to do with him selling weed. Samuel Caldwell. Remember the name, people.
Pour one out for the homie.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. Yep, let's do that. I have water.
That was the what was kind of the first enactment of federal laws was like the Narcotics Control Act, of course, and the Boggs Act, which setting mandatory sentences for drug-related offenses, including marijuana. Which, not to be biased, and I'm sure that it works for I've heard that it works for legalizing everything. Kind of helps to get rid of the stigma of it, but I don't know. I'm not sure I would want fentanyl or heroin readily available.
That was 1951.
Yep. And the first offense for marijuana possession carried a minimum sentence of 2 to 10 years with a fine of up to $20,000 in 1950s money, which would be, let's see, I'm curious what that would be today. 1950, 20K to now.
Look at her. She's got her
Yeah,
calculator
today.
ready.
Oh my God! Today, that would be $250,000.
Oh.
Jesus Christ! Yeah, 20,000 in 1950 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $253,685.48.
Guess who enters the picture in 1968?
Is it?
Nixon.
Nixon.
We don't like him either. He's right there with Anslinger. In 1969, Supreme Court found that the Marijuana Tax Act was unconstitutional. In response, Congress passed the Controlled Substance Act with the 5 categories that we know so well now, classifying marijuana as a Schedule I most dangerous drug.
Oh my God. Not to quote Cat Williams, but it's just a plant. It just grows like that. And if you should so happen to set it on fire, there are some effects. But my God.
Speak it. That's really cool because I feel in 2024, this is going to be another part of history. We're going to take away, and push it down to a 3. And so all pharmacies will be able to, all doctors will be able to prescribe cannabis. So if you're going in there and they're like, hey, do you want a Valium? You want an Adderall? Do you want this, that, the other thing? You can say, no, I prefer cannabis and get it.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
It is. And I believe there is an Adderall kind of shortage, and there's an issue with Adderall supplies at the moment, I believe, because I know a very close friend of mine was having very difficult time getting her prescription, and she is not currently able to smoke marijuana, so she's just kind of like, I don't know what to do. I can't relax. I can't focus. She's just in a really bad fog.
So the next thing, we have our allies. Okay, NORML was formed, National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I'm an official member of NORML.
Okay, cool.
So I've been a member for a couple years now, and I follow them and I support them. Yeah, I'm kind of proud of it. And so I'd like for Simply Vibin to also become a member of NORML and support the reform.
Yeah,
So-
I need to look into that.
Yeah.
Then in 1972,
I already know.
Go for it, Sam.
That's the Schaefer Commission?
I was just going to say that Nixon created the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration.
Yes. The Schaefer Commission was a little bit before that, and so they were bipartisan. They appointed President Nixon per Congress to consider laws regarding marijuana that determined for personal use it should be decriminalized. And you want to guess what Nixon did? He rejected it and said nope. But over the course of the 70s, there were 11 states at that time that did decriminalize marijuana. So basically just kind of ignoring him a little bit. And a lot of them reduced their penalties at that time too, so it was nice to kind of see that there was already starting to be some pushback. It was, like you say, right around that time too, the DEA was founded, but you know what happened a year later too? High Times was founded.
Hell yeah.
There's just big players coming up all over the place in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. And the Flower Children were leading the way. So John... I'm bad with this kind of stuff, but John Ehrlichman. Quote from him. It says, by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities.
I mean, that's just proving the conspiracy theories of the crack epidemic in the black community of being true.
I don't think it is
true.
Conspiracy theories anymore. I mean, people got caught up in that trap, though.
And right now, I think that they're still holding on to that, and they're trying to control that environment so that no one can rise up against them. I say Gen X onward to the kids are not going to play this game. They're not going to fall for this game, and it's about speaking up It's about showing the reason that this became illegal. It's about showing the history that's associated with this. This is medicine.
Yeah.
This can make you can make a house out of it. You can put hemp seeds on your salad. It's good for your skin. I mean, there's so many things that this plant can do for you.
Yeah.
And they're hiding it from you.
There's just so much potential that is being squandered and lied about because of all this bullshit we've been talking about, where they're just pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down. And I will just never be able to be convinced that it's not for profit, you know?
It's an agenda for sure.
Yeah,
Like,
it's all an agenda.
Twofold.
It's not all profit, you know, when they're able to also disrupt communities, which is still
for
happening.
sure.
And I was a big part of it. I'd say almost probably bigger than profit.
Well, it's about being able to put them in prison, okay, and keep them behind bars so that they can't be a good person in society, making a living, you know, supporting the community. They're putting them behind bars and making it like they don't matter. They're throwing them away. They're throwing their families away. It's beyond that, and that's what.
Well, and then if you go
that's what we have to change.
I'll say if you go into for-profit prison, that's a whole other episode.
I was
and we
just
should look into
about
how much money they're putting into probably keeping this stuff illegal in states. You know, they don't want to lose their customers.
That's a free workforce too. There's a lot of like prison programs to, you know, for cheap labor, and it's like, you'd have to pay actual human beings. Not that prison
living
people
wages.
aren't, but you'd have to pay living wages, the actual people wage. But no, we're just going to use prisons, basically slavery, because we don't have to pay them.
Yeah.
They're in here for doing, in quotes, bad things, when it could literally just be that they got busted with a little bag of weed.
And they're sitting there in a legalized state while everybody's on the street able to go to a fucking store and buy it. And they're sitting behind bars and can't be with their family. So Last Prisoner Project is somebody that works heavily on this. And I think you should go and take a look at their page. They have a record. They can't get good jobs. I mean, it's an endless cycle of the things that's happening. They're missing out on their children. They're missing out on their mothers that are passing away while they're in there.
Yeah.
All because of a plant.
It's so
That
dumb.
is a medicine. It gets me upset. And I do, Phoebe, I do want to do a whole episode on that. I want to deep dive. I want to go deep into the prison system. I want to go into the expungements, the states that are doing it now, where it's happening, where it's not happening, who's still in there, because I think it's really important to share these people, and then you can get behind and you can write letters. And you know, I know that Kim Kardashian, I know she's a Kardashian, whatever, but she is doing some good things for people behind bars. And she's spreading the word. She's helping trying to get them out. Fucking write a letter to Kim Kardashian, tell them about it. I don't care who you write, as long as they can help get some of these people out and home to their families and their records expunged.
Yep. It got a little bit more progressive through the 70s, and obviously the Bushes had a whole nother war on drugs that came in the 80s and early 90s. But, you know, since then we've kind of been on an uptick with it, to where we've kind of been on an upward climb where, you know, whenever all of the legalization kind of for medical use started back in, what was that, 2008, 9 in California? I remember it was one of the, what's the, I don't watch sports. Let me just preface this. What's the big baseball one every year? What's the last baseball game that's like the biggest?
World Series.
That one. So it was, California was facing the Rangers in the World Series, and they had just legalized, I don't know if it was medical marijuana, but it was, you know, everybody's getting, in quotes, medical marijuana cards, even if they didn't really have like an issue. And I remember they were, you know, showing big live coverage of it, because my whole family was watching it, and there was just a cloud of smoke just kind of like wafting over the California stadium, and that was kind of my first dive into, okay, well, maybe in a couple years we'll finally be to full legalization. And you know, that was 15 plus years ago now, so you know, it's been very slow and very steady, but I think we're to a point to where we're on the other side of it. If y'all want to make some money, Texas, legalize it, get some tax dollars, dude.
Yes.
Like, y'all don't want that?
Regulate and tax it. Regulate and tax it.
But I guess in in my white privilege, never really realized how racially motivated it was. Just like every freaking thing else to build this country.
Yeah.
But it was surprising. I was very shocked to see that. I was even asking my husband yesterday, I said, should I even talk about this? Like, is it even my place to? And that's what he said. He goes, absolutely. Yeah, he goes, use that to speak out about it. And, you know, kind of, you didn't know about it, bring it to somebody else's attention.
Exactly. I would say if you didn't know Sam and you know quite a bit, then other people wouldn't know. You know, not everybody understands the racial disparity and how it's affecting all that.
It's surprising.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, it's important to have diversity on this podcast when we talk to different people. But right now, we're just sharing the information we have, and it doesn't matter what color we are that we're sharing. It's facts. You can find them on Google. This is all information that is public knowledge. I think this all falls in line with a freedom event, Freedom Festival that's happening on October 14th. That Simply Vibin', Code Green Plant, we're all going to be there because we want to walk for freedom of the plant and just talk with like-minded people.
I'm so excited for that. I think that's going to be so fun. Please let me know as soon as like we're all good to go for that, because I cannot wait.
Get shirts.
Please do.
I was just thinking we'll have them by then. We will. Yeah.
No.
We're low budget, but I mean,
we'll get them.
If we got like Simply Vibin' on the front and then Code Green Plant on the back.
Well, this has been so good, and I wanted to encourage our listeners and challenge them to share this podcast with someone else, because I feel like the people listening to us, they're like-minded, you know, and what we want to do is like, we love our community and we want to spread awareness, but we want to reach outside our community to people that may not have any idea what's going on over here. And they only know of the negative sides and the negative stigma. So like, I want to encourage our listeners to share this with somebody. I challenge everyone, share it with one person and maybe educate one person that didn't have a clue what this is really all about.
Once you hear it, you can't ever turn away from it. It's there. You can't ever turn away from it. You will not listen to what politics and the politicians are saying if you just look at the history. It doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for Simply Vibing with us, and hit the like and subscribe button and come back next Wednesday for a brand new episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Sam.
Of course.
This episode of Code Green Plant was sponsored by Simply Vibin' LLC. Code Green Plant is a Simply Vibin' production hosted by Christy Chanel along with her co-host Phoebe James. This podcast is not intended to be used for medical advice and is solely the opinion of the host. Please consult your physician. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to follow us on social media. Want more? Visit www.simplyvibin.com. And a special thank you to the core group of people who helped with the creation of the Code Green Plant podcast. We appreciate you simply vibing with us.
Code Green Plant.